Our long Nashville hockey nightmare is over. Luke Evangelista is coming home. Also, Joakim Kemmel nearly committed a felony this weekend. We're going to talk about the contract and the crime on today's Locked On Predators podcast.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome to the Locked On Predators podcast. Thanks so much for making us your first listen of the day. We are, of course, your free daily Nashville Predators podcast. We're a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to kick off our week shouting out our Locked On Predators insiders community and, of course, our everydayers who tune in to talk Nashville Predators hockey with us. I'm Ann Kimmel. I am a writer and co-host with Penalty Box Radio, and I am usually joined by the Louise to my hockey Thelma, but Emma is off today. We have a lot that we're going to talk about, though, and it is finally happening. As of the time of this recording, friends, Luke Evangelista has a contract with the Nashville Predators. We're going to talk about the deal and the process it took to get that deal done. We're also going to talk about the big final preseason game that happened on Saturday afternoon. We're going to break down that game, share our takeaways, and talk about Joakim Kemmel's attempt to make the roster. What a final statement he made in that game. Plus, final rosters are due today in the NHL. Who is going to be in? Who is going to be out? We'll tell you our thoughts on that. Before we dive into all of this, though, we do want to let you know today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com, and you're going to win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Friends, it brings me so much joy to remind you that our great Nashville hockey nightmare is over. Friends, Luke Evangelista finally signed a contract to come back to the Nashville Predators. The deal is, of course, 2 years, $3 million AAV. That's how much the team is going to be charged against the cap, $3 million each season. Luke's salary will be $2.25 million in his first year, $3.75 million in the second year. That deal finally got done. This is an interesting quote that was released by the team on behalf of Barry Trotz. It says, "We are very happy to have this contract signed and have Luke rejoin our team before the start of the regular season. As we have said all along, we view him as an important player for us, not only in 2025-26, but in the years ahead. We're glad to get him back on the ice with his teammates." Friends, I don't even know how to break this whole thing down. I'm not even sure what to take away from this process, because this is actually the deal that we all really thought was going to happen at the end of April. Like 2 years, $3 million. That was pretty much on the dot what everybody thought this deal was going to be. It was going to be a bridge deal. So 2 years, 3 years. It was going to be a raise for Luke Evangelista from his ELC, and more than just what they were required to offer him. And $3 million feels like the right ballpark for a young player who you still haven't consistently seen his ceiling. You're still trying to figure out where he fits in, but you have seen glimpses from Luke Evangelista at the end of last season of what he is capable of when he is given top 6 minutes and a top 6 opportunity. So while in a lot of ways you understand that Barry Trotz does not want to offer another contract based on potential, which we saw with the Tommy Novak situation, this was never an outrageous price for Luke Evangelista. And so while there is, of course, relief that this contract is done, that this drama is wrapped up, it is absolutely confounding that this negotiation went on so long that Luke missed 2 weeks of training camp just to sign a deal that everybody would have been like, oh yeah, okay, if he would have signed in April. This could have been a slam dunk. And what it has cost the Predators and what it has cost Luke Evangelista to have it drag out this long, that remains to be seen. But just watching this process unfold, there's a couple of takeaways for me in regards to the entire NHL, but also in regards to the Nashville Predators and this specific player. We have talked on the show, Emma and I have talked quite a bit about how with the salary cap going up, there is going to be kind of this awkward period in contract negotiations. And then you have aspects of things like you have that Kirill Kaprizov huge deal signed. And so the entire league, the agents, the teams are trying to recalibrate what contracts are going to look like. So honestly, there is a little bit of hope in me that maybe that was part of why this took so long, is that the agent and the franchise were recalibrating differently, because that would at least make some sense to me. But I do think we are going to see in the short term a stretch of maybe more awkward negotiations as the cap goes up. And we're going to see that, I think, especially with players like Luke. I think it's going to be pretty obvious what the ballpark is going to be for Connor McDavid this offseason. I think it's going to be pretty evident that the cost of a superstar is going to go up exponentially. But it's these players like the Luke Evangelistas. How are their contracts going to adjust to the salary cap? So there is probably just going to naturally be this period of awkwardness trying to get some of these smaller deals done to figure out how does the trickle down of the cap salary affect players like Luke Evangelista. I hope that that played a part in this, because otherwise, here's what I know. This is a bad look, you all. This is a bad look. And we don't know what went on behind the scenes in the negotiations. And here's what's real. We're not going to know. Luke Evangelista and his team are never going to squeal. Barry Trotz in the franchise, they are never going to squeal. They're going to keep how the sausage was made in the factory. And I think most of us can be thankful for that. But we got to be honest, the optics of this, not a good look, I think, for Barry Trotz. I think it's not just the Nashville Predators media who have been really fascinated and confused as we cover this. This has become a national topic. Luke was one of the last RFAs to be signed, and there was so much speculation from national reporters, from national pundits about why is this deal difficult? Like, this is, a ballpark deal. And again, I'm telling you, 2 years, $3 million. If you would have said to anybody at the end of April, this is the deal, they would have been like, yeah, okay. And yet it's taken all summer, 2 weeks into training camp for this deal to get done. So I just don't think this is a particularly good look for Barry Trotz. Again, whether this all falls on Trotz or not, we don't know, and we're not going to know. But it is not a great look for Barry Trotz that a very reasonable contract, a very predictable contract, dragged on into training camp. The other takeaway that I have, and this was really interesting, there was a lot of back and forth online that we saw about people and their feelings about Luke Evangelista getting a deal or not getting a deal. And there were times where it seemed like kind of the crowd was, let him go, cut him loose. If he's going to play hardball, if he's going to demand all this money, he hasn't produced enough to demand that. And I think some of that, again, comes back to adjusting for these new contract negotiations, new prices in the market. But I will tell you this, Luke Evangelista was in the house for the Saturday afternoon game, and Brooks Bratton did a hit before the game started. And in that hit, he mentioned the re-signing of Luke Evangelista. Roar from the crowd when Brooks's hit mentioned the Evangelista contract getting done. And then in the first TV timeout, friends, who did they show up on Fang Vision? Luke Evangelista. He was sitting up in one of the boxes. He, of course, was not on the roster or on the ice. The crowd roared for him. So just very interesting watching sort of the ebb and the flow as this process has gone on. And I think here's what we need to do. We need to see how this pans out, because the pressure was on Barry Trotz to get a deal done. And friends, optically, not a good look. Now the pressure is on Luke Evangelista to show that he was worth that. And we're going to have to see how that goes. There have been a lot of players that have stepped up in training camp. It's going to be interesting to wait and see how we get Luke Evangelista up to speed with the team. We're going to have to watch and see how long-term this contract plays out. Coming up, like I mentioned, the Nashville Predators did play on Saturday afternoon. It was their final preseason game. One player really wanted to make a final statement before final rosters are due today. We'll talk about the game and we'll talk about that performance coming up. Today's episode is brought to you by our great friends at Monarch Money. Most people can't name all of their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it is their 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It is an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you have put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does all of the heavy lifting for you. You can link your accounts in minutes and then see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and you will finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Monarch helps you easily review finances with your partner and keep a clear view of your financial goals. It's also a great tool for young adults starting out. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use our code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That is 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with our code LOCKEDONNHL. All right, Luke Evangelista is back with the team. I am headed down to practice this morning, and that will be our first chance to hear from Luke. So we're going to bring you all of that on tomorrow's episode as well. But we're talking about another Nashville Predator a lot after Saturday afternoon's game, and we're gonna get to that juicy sequence. But just to recap, if you missed the game Saturday afternoon, the Nashville Predators won their final preseason game in overtime by a score of 3-2 over the Carolina Hurricanes. And like I said, we're going to get to the overtime action in a minute. It was incredible, friends. Practicing our preseason one word, getting ready for the regular season. My one word for Saturday afternoon's game is fortitude, which means courage in adversity. Here's what we know. Nashville is very familiar with adversity. If you were around for the last 84 years, you know that last season was just decades of adversity wrapped up in 82 games. It's hard to know what to expect from this team moving forward. Saturday was a really interesting game to watch for some takeaways because you had mostly the NHL roster, the starting roster for the Nashville Predators. Steven Stamkos was not on the roster, so he was kind of the one big star that did not play Saturday afternoon. And the Carolina Hurricanes started basically their opening night roster, with the exception, I believe, of Jacob Slavin, their defenseman. So for the most part, this was as close to a regular season game roster to roster as Nashville has seen in the preseason. And the Predators went down 1-0. Jonathan Marchessault tied it up with a great power play goal. And then former Carolina Hurricane Tyson Jost scored a goal against his former team to give Nashville that 2-1 lead. And then, friends, with like 5 minutes left to go in the game, Nashville had the lead. We're feeling good. We've survived this. And then Seth Jarvis ties it up late in the game. And you could just feel the air like coming out, not only of Bridgestone Arena, but from yourself on a cellular level, because we have seen this show last season. Nashville I was very excited, was able to hold on in regulation to the tie because there were times last season where this team kind of collapsed in enough just emotionally and mentally that they would maybe have given up that game in regulation if they weren't careful. But they actually went on into overtime, 3-on-3 hockey, and won the game in overtime. After the game, we got a chance to hear from Ryan O'Reilly. And of course, we talked with Andrew Brunette about their takeaways from this game. And I thought they had some really interesting observations about how the team handled some of the ebbs and flows of the game. This is what they had to say post game.
That was good. I thought we started a little slow, but found our game. Took it to them. They made a little pushback, but in general, I thought with the energy of everyone was good. Even when things were going wrong, the guys were still working and talking and, not getting kind of down and quiet. And I think that was really important for us. And, yeah, it's big, finding a way to win. That was, I think closest as we can get to regular season game. Obviously, it ramps up even more with, now we're going for real. But still had that the urgency, and the excitement on the bench was excellent. And it's, it's a good feeling to go into the regular season. And, yeah, it's going to be exciting.
What I really appreciated was the energy that our group had. They were talking, they were helping each other out. It's fun to have that energy on the bench with them, and they get rewarded for it. So it was a really good outing for us. But it is the last game of the exhibition season. I hope we keep that feeling because we worked really hard for that feeling tonight.
It was definitely a very different vibe from the Nashville Predators than the vibe that we saw from this team in late March, April, where they were just trying to get through this season and piece some sort of something good together to leave last season with. And it was very hard to believe that that same team was going to be able to wipe the slate clean enough to come into this season and have some of that emotional fortitude after being so beaten down last season. But you really did see that in this game, that when Carolina tied it up late, the team did not collapse in. And so I do feel really encouraged about that. I wonder how much of that is helped by the energy of the young players who really didn't experience last season. In this game, you had Joakim Kemmel in the lineup. You had Brady Martin in the lineup. Adam Wilsby was, of course, with the team last season, but did not play at the end of the season because of injury. So you had some voices and some energy on this team that had not been through 84 years of pain and suffering. So when Carolina tied it up, it's like you kind of take on this well, guess we're going to have to keep playing of the young players. And that's something in talking to the veterans that they have pointed out, that there is something infectious about the energy and the joy of these young players. I talked with Roman Josi last week about the dynamics of having veteran players with young players. And of course, it's so obvious what the benefit is for these young players. You get to learn from a Roman Josi, a Ryan O'Reilly, a Steven Stamkos. You get to see how to conduct yourself as a professional athlete and get the most out of, your own self by watching these veteran mentors. But I asked Josi, I'm like, what's in it for you? Like, what do you veterans get out of these young players in the locker room? And his thing was, we get joy. Like, these guys come in and they love to play hockey, and they just want to play hockey, and they are excited to play hockey. And that's contagious. And if that feeling in the locker room helps translate onto the ice for the Nashville Predators, I think it's going to help do a lot to get this team over just the emotional hangover from last season. It was really encouraging to see a Nashville Predators team that did not disintegrate under that late, disappointing tie. And here's what is real about the Nashville Predators. Are they going to be the best team in the Central Division? Friends, I'm just going to say it to you gently. The answer is no. They're not going to be the best team in the Central Division. But if you want the best version of the Nashville Predators, don't be looking for a team that executes perfectly. Look for the team to improve how they weather ebbs and flows of games, because there are no teams in the NHL that play perfect 60-minute games. There are few teams that dominate for 60 minutes against an opponent. There are always ebbs and flows, and a team's success is more about weathering that than avoiding that. So that for Nashville is going to be a big growth. The team is going to be what the team is. The team's top ceiling performance is going to be the sum total of the individual's top performances. And I don't think, for as great as this roster is, it is not the same roster as some of the top teams in the league. But how this team weathers ebbs and flows in games, that's going to tell you how successful the Predators team is going to be in the regular season. Coming up, friends, we just have to talk about it. Everybody is talking about it. The national media is talking about it. Joakim Kemmel has decided that he really, really wants to make the NHL team. Coming up, we're going to talk about what he did in overtime to make his case. Today's episode is brought to you by our great friends at FanDuel. Of course, the NFL season is here. The Tennessee Titans are winning games, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet. Put down $5, and if it hits, you're going to unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. You're going to love how FanDuel gives you so many different ways to play. You can build parlays, you can try those player props, and even follow the live lines during games. It's going to make watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. Whether you are a casual fan or you love diving into all of the stats, FanDuel is going to make your game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Oh, you all, Joakim Kemmel. In case you did not see Saturday afternoon's game, Joakim Kemmel said I want to play in the NHL. He said it crystal clearly, not just throughout regulation with a solid performance, but oh my gosh, Joakim Kemmel in overtime. Let me set the stage for you. Okay, 3-on-3 hockey in overtime. So what you have is fast-paced, lots of ice. Lots of ice. There's space for everyone to have personal space in 3-on-3 overtime. Carolina had the puck. Andrei Svechnikov coming up through the neutral zone with the puck, probably thinking, oh, look at these two young sprouts named Kimmel and Martin. They're on the ice. I'm just going to skate the puck through them and go about my business. Joakim Kemmel absolutely did not give up any ground. Svechnikov went one way. His stick went the other way when he made contact with Joakim Kemmel in a perfectly legal hit. And then sweet little Brady Martin just casually scoops up the loose puck and skates around the Carolina corpse to get possession. And then Sebastian Aho took exception to the hit and came over and slashed Joakim Kemmel repeatedly and apparently said some things to him in Finnish. We didn't get any sort of translation from Joakim Kemmel, but he did giggle a little bit when we asked him about it. So Aho headed to the box. Nashville was on an overtime power play. Friends, who scores that game winner? Joakim Kemmel with a one-timer from the circle. That shot that we have told you about, that shot that has been his calling card, that shot that has been the argument for why is this kid not in the NHL? We saw it with the winner in overtime. It was such an amazing 5 minutes of overtime for Joakim Kemmel. We got a chance to talk with him after the game about the hit, the score, and how important it is for him to show this team what he is capable of ahead of turning in opening night rosters. This is what Joakim Kemmel had to say.
I mean, it's just a part of me. I like to play hard and I like to hit. And I mean, that was a good time. Like, I don't know what to say. Good hit, good goal. I like to shoot, so I hit the net. So I can score sometimes also. Yeah, I mean, obviously amazing. Like, that's what I like to do, and that's what is my job kind of here. But like, yeah, it felt really good. I mean, I just gave my best from the for the camp, and I'm just waiting. It's their decision what they're gonna do.
I'm just waiting. It's their decision what they're gonna do. So Joakim Kemmel making a statement in that game. This is one of those players that really in the offseason was sort of the heir apparent to the small openings that was going to be available for the Nashville Predators. And Joakim Kemmel has come into camp. There's been a lot of competition in training camp. I would say far more competition than most of us expected, a lot more opportunity than most of us anticipated. And I think Joakim Kemmel really worked hard, not just in this game Saturday, but he's had a really solid camp all the way through. So he's really working hard to show Nashville that he deserves a chance in the NHL. Of course, he played 2 NHL games last season in the spring. He wants to make that opening night roster, and he wants to stay in the NHL. So it was, if you did not see the hit, friends, look it up. It looked to me, as I watched it happen, I'm like, deja vu. Where have I seen this again? And it looked like the hockey version of when Derrick Henry launched with his stiff arm, the Buffalo Bills player, and the Bills player was like horizontal to the ice. This was the hockey version of that from Joakim Kemmel. A couple other takeaways from Saturday's game, and this I loved to see just in talking with some of our insiders and chatting with people online. It was really good to see some comments that said, this is at least fun to watch. And it was fun to watch. Look, there was not a lot of fun in Whoville last year. It was not fun to watch this team towards the end of the season. This was fun hockey. Now, it's an exhibition game, and the vibes are different for both teams in the regular season. So we're going to have to see what happens on Thursday, but it was fun hockey to watch. There were some things that, I was like, oh, I really think we're going to need to clean that up. Nashville had a lot of trouble getting the puck out of the defensive zone at times. And one of those goals was a result of a turnover in the defensive zone that resulted in, I think it was the game tying goal. So just getting the puck out of the defensive zone cleanly is something that you really want to see Nashville work on. That was something they struggled with some last year. It's also something that I think this is one of those tweaks that they don't want to tell us about in camp, because we've seen them do some different things, some different drills, some different work on getting the puck out of the defensive zone. So still need a little work on that for Thursday. Juuse Saros played the entire game, and I thought Saros looked great. 23 for 25 on saves, 920 save percentage. This game, you saw some absolute highway robberies from both goaltenders. Juuse Saros had some of those goals, those saves where you were like, this is who we know he is. This is how Nashville will stay in some games. But friends, Kochetkov kept Carolina in this game. I mean, there were some saves that Hurricanes goaltender made that I was like, I would like to see that again in slow motion. So a lot of good goaltending in that game, and you ended up with a fairly low scoring event, even though I think that there were much more high danger chances. Saros's goals that he gave up, one was basically a 1-on-1 in front of the net after that turnover, and then the other one was a 2-on-1. So nothing egregious from the goaltender. I think very encouraging to see. Nashville, it was good. Nashville held their own against a Carolina team. Like I said, didn't have Jacob Slavin, but this was a really good Carolina team. So for a last game, it's a good aftertaste. We'll see how things feel on Thursday when the games really count. Today, the NHL teams each have to submit their opening night rosters, 23 players or less. And like I mentioned earlier, this has been a training camp that's been very, very unexpected. A lot of things weren't as we thought that they would be. We thought we would go into this training camp and basically you were going to have one forward slot open because, just of the signing of Erik Haula and how the other players had played. But training camp didn't unfold that way. Of course, you had Luke Evangelista missing almost over 2 weeks of training camp. Brady Martin sticking around in training camp and playing well, playing top line minutes with Philip Forsberg, playing with Ryan O'Reilly. You had Matthew Wood come into camp. And I will tell you, I think Matthew Wood had the best training camp of any player, veteran, new guy. I thought Matthew Wood came into camp and looked phenomenal. And then he got injured at the Gold Star Showcase. So then that changes the dynamic. Oh, but wait, friends, there's more. Nashville picks up Tyson Jost off of waivers. So things suddenly got very interesting. You add in, of course, the injury to Nick Hague that's going to keep him out of the start of the season. And you end up with some battles on defense, and you end up with players competing for opportunities in the forward area as well. Questions do remain. Right now, Nick Hague and Matthew Wood are on IR, so they don't count on the roster. If things remain the same, if they opt not to send anyone down, Nashville will have the maximum 23 players on the roster, sans our 2 IR guys. So Nashville could just go ahead and submit this roster. We will wait and see today. If they opt to send anybody down to Milwaukee, we're going to wait and see what they do with Brady Martin. That is going to be a very interesting decision for the Nashville Predators. What are you going to do with the 18-year-old who can play 9 games and then you start paying him? It's going to be really interesting to see what they do. And we're going to talk about that on tomorrow's show. Defensively, you've got Adam Wilsby looking very, very good. You move Adam Wilsby up to play with Roman Josi. You're now opening a spot on that third pairing. We saw Spencer Stasny slot in with Justin Barron on that third pairing in Saturday afternoon's game. That could be your defensive pairings for opening night. But there are still some defensemen that are looking to get some time on the ice as well. So a lot for the Predators to sort out before they put out the opening night roster on Thursday night. And a lot of things, so we want to see them cleaning up before then. Of course, I talked about defensive zone exits. Let's get some chemistry going. Let's get Luke Evangelista back in the lineup and see where he fits in as well. Again, today, Vange's first camp back with the team. So on tomorrow's show, like I mentioned, we will share with you what we have learned from Luke Evangelista. Always a good time talking to Vange. Be especially interesting after what we saw unfold these last, months, waiting for that contract to get done as well. We'll bring you on tomorrow's show, of course, all of the roster updates as well, and hear what Andrew Brunette has to say about this final opening night roster that he's going to submit today. That is actually going to do it for our Monday show here at the Locked On Predators podcast. Thanks again so much for making us your first listen of the day. On tomorrow's show, we're going to cover all of that. And friends, the Thelma to my Louise, the Louise to my Thelma, I think. Emma will be back with me too. So we're going to break down everything new from the Nashville Predators then. Hey, if you want to get prepped for this season ahead of Thursday, go ahead and check out our recently released 4-team crossover on our channel. I recorded it with friends of ours from Locked On Blackhawks, Locked On Blues, and Locked On Mammoth. We had a great conversation talking about the season coming up and what our teams need to do to be a little bit better. We have a list. It's a really great show, so make sure you check that out today. Hope you guys have a fabulous Monday. We will be back tomorrow with an all-new episode. We'll see you then.